Hello, and welcome back to Baby Ellis's stories. We now return to Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett, Part 7. The River Ankh is probably the only river in the universe on which the investigators can chalk the outline of the corpse. Dear Sergeant Cullen, I hope you are well. The weather is fine. This is a corpse who we fished out of the river last night, but we don't know who he is except he is a member of the Fool's Guild called Piano. He has been seriously hit on the back of the head and has been stuck under the bridge for some time. He is not a pretty sight. Captain Vime says to find out things. He says he thinks it is mixed up with the murder of Mr. Hammerhawk. He says talk to the fools. He says do it. Also, please find attached piece of paper. Captain Vime says try it out on the alchemists. Sergeant Colin stopped reading for a while to curse all alchemists. Because it is puzzling evidence. Hoping this finds you in good health, yours faithfully, Carrot Iron Founderson, CPL. The sergeant scratched his head. What the hell did that all mean? Just after breakfast, a couple of senior jesters from the Fool's Guild had come to pick up the corpse. Corpses in the river. Well, there was nothing very unusual about that, but it wasn't the way clowns died usually. After all, what did a clown have that was worth stealing? What sort of danger was a clown? As for the alchemists, he was blowed if he was. Of course, he didn't have to. He looked up at the recruits. They had to be good for something. Cuddy! Detritus! Don't salute! I've got a little job for you. Just take this piece of paper to the alchemists. Guild. The alchemists' guild, all right? And ask one of the loonies to tell you what he makes of it. Where's the alchemist guild, Sergeant? Said Cuddy. In the Street of Alchemists, of course, said Colin. At the moment, but I should run if I was you. The Alchemists' Guild is opposite the Gamblers' Guild, usually. Sometimes it's above it, or below it, or falling in bits around it. The gamblers are occasionally asked why they continue to maintain an establishment opposite a guild which accidentally blows up its guild hall every few months, and they say, "Did you read the sign on the door when you came in?" The troll and the dwarf walked towards it, occasionally barging into each other by deliberate accident. Anyway, you so clever, he gave paper to me. Ha! Can you read it then, can you? No, I tell you to read it. That called delegation. Ha! Can't read it. Can't count. Stupid troll. Not stupid. Ha! Yes, everyone knows trolls can't even count up to 4. Eater of rats. How many fingers am I holding up? You tell me, Mr. Clever Rocks in the Head. Many, Detritus hazarded. Ha ha, no, 5. You'll be in big trouble on payday. Sergeant Collins say, stupid troll, he won't know how many dollars I give him. Ha! How come you read the notice about joining the watch anyway? How come you read the notice about joining the watch anyway? Got someone to read it to you? How come you read notice? Get someone to hold you up? They walked into the door of the Alchemist's Guild. I knock. My job. I'll knock. When Mr. Sendivoge, the guild secretary, opened the door, it was to find a dwarf hanging on the knocker and being swung up and down by a troll. He adjusted his crash helmet. Yes, he said. Cuddy let go. Detritus' massive brows knitted. Detritus' massive brows knitted. You loony bastard! What you make of this? He said. Sendivoge stared from Detritus to the paper. Cuddy was struggling to get around the troll who was almost completely blocking the doorway. What'd you go and call him that for? Sergeant Colin, he said. I could make a hat out of it, said Sendivoge. Or a string of dollies, if I could get some scissors. What my colleague means, sir, is can you help us in inquiries in R.E. the writing on this alleged piece of paper here? Said Cuddy. That bloody hurt. Sendivoge peered at him. Are you watchmen? He said. I'm Lance-constable Cuddy, and this, said Cuddy, gesturing upwards, is Lance trying to be Constable Detritus. Don't salute... Oh. There was a thump, and Detritus slumped sideways. Suicide Squad, is he? Said the alchemist. He'll come around in a minute, said Cuddy. It's the saluting. It's too much for him. You know, trolls. Sendivoge shrugged and stared at the writing. Looks familiar, he said. Seen it somewhere before? Here, you're a dwarf, aren't you? It's the nose, isn't it? Said Cuddy. It always gives me away. Well, I'm sure we always try to be of help to the community, said Sendivoge. Do come in. Cuddy's steel-tipped boots kicked Detritus back into semi-sensibility, and he lumbered after them. Why the crash helmet, mister? Said Cuddy, as they walked along the corridor. All around them was the sound of hammering. The guild was usually being rebuilt. Sendivoge rolled his eyes. Balls, he said. Billiard balls, in fact. I knew a man who played like that, said Cuddy. Oh, no. Mr. Silverfish is a good shot. That tends rather to be the problem, in fact. Cuddy looked at the crash helmet again. It's the ivory, you see. Ah, said Cuddy. Not seeing elephants? Ivory without elephants. Transmuted ivory. Sound commercial venture. I thought you were working on gold. Ah, yes, of course. You people know all about gold, said Sendivoge. Oh, yes, said Cuddy, reflecting on the phrase, you people. The gold, said Sendivoge thoughtfully, is turning out to be a bit tricky. How long have you been trying? 300 years. That's a long time. But we've been working on the ivory for only a week, and it's going very well, said the alchemist quickly. Except for some side effects, which we'll doubtless soon be able to sort out. He pushed open a door. It was a large room, heavily outfitted with the usual badly ventilated furnaces, rows of bubbling crucibles, and one stuffed alligator. Things floated in jars. The air smelled of a limited life expectancy. A lot of equipment had been moved away, however, to make room for a billiard table. Half a dozen alchemists were standing around it in the manner of men poised to run. It's the third this week, said Sendivoge gloomily. He nodded to a figure bent over a queue. Mr. Silverfish, he began. Quiet! Game on! Said the head alchemist, squinting at the white ball. Sendivo glanced at the score rail. 21 points, he said. My word. Perhaps we're adding just the right amount of camphor to the nitrocellulose after all. There was a click. The cue ball rolled away, bounced off the cushion, and then accelerated. White smoke poured off it as it bore down on an innocent cluster of red balls. Silverfish shook his head. Unstable, he said. Everybody down! Everyone in the room ducked, except for the two watchmen, of whom was in the sense pre-ducked, and the other of whom was several minutes behind events. The black ball took off on a column of flame, whiffled past Detritus's face, trailing black smoke, and then shattered a window. The green ball was staying in one spot, but spinning furiously. The other balls cannoned back and forth, occasionally bursting into flame or caroming off the walls. A red one hit Detritus between the eyes, curved back onto the table, holed itself in the middle pocket, and then blew up. There was silence, except for the occasional bout of coughing. Silverfish appeared through the oily smoke and, with a shaking hand, moved the score point one notch with the burning end of his cue. 1, he said. Oh well, back to the crucible. Someone order another billiard table. Excuse me, said Cuddy, prodding him in the knee. Who's there? Down here. Silverfish looked down. Oh, are you a dwarf? Cuddy gave him a blank stare. Are you a giant? He said. Me? Of course not. Ah, then I must be a dwarf. Yes, and that's a troll behind me, said Cuddy. Detritus pulled himself into something resembling attention. We've come to see if you can tell us what's on this paper, said Cuddy. Yer, said Detritus. Silverfish looked at it. Oh, yes, he said. Some of old Leonard's stuff. Well? Leonard, said Cuddy. He glared at Detritus. Write this down, he snapped. Leonard of Quirm, said the alchemist. Cuddy still looked lost. Never heard of him. Never heard of him, said Silverfish. Can't say I have, sir. I thought everyone knew about Leonard de Quirm. Quite balmy, but a genius too. Was he an alchemist? Write this down, write this down. Detritus looked around blearily for a blunt bit of wood and a handy wall. Leonard? No, he didn't belong to a guild, or he belonged to all the guilds, I suppose. He got around quite a bit. He tinkered, if you know what I mean. No, sir. He painted a bit and messed about with mechanisms, any old thing. Or a hammer and chisel even, thought Detritus. This, said Silverfish, is a formula for... Oh, well, I might as well tell you. It's hardly a big secret. It's a formula for what we called number 1 powder. Sulfur, saltpetre, and charcoal. You use it in fireworks. Any fool could make it up, but it looks odd because it's written back to front. This sounds important, hissed Cuddy to the troll. Oh no, he always used to write back to front, said Silverfish. He was odd like that, but very clever all the same. Haven't you seen his portrait of the Mona Og? I don't think so. Silverfish handed the parchment to Detritus, who squinted at it as if he knew what it meant. Maybe he could write on this, he thought. The teeth followed you around the room. Amazing. In fact, some people said they followed them out of the room and all the way down the street. I think we should talk to Mr. de Quirm, said Cuddy. Oh, you could do that. You could do that certainly, said Silverfish. But he might not be in a position to listen. He disappeared a couple of years ago. then when I find something to write with, thought Detritus, I have to find someone teach me how to write. I have to find someone teach me how write. Disappeared? How? Said Cuddy. We think, said Silverfish, leaning closer, that he found a way of making himself invisible. Really? Because, said Silverfish, nodding conspiratorially, no one sees him. Ah, said Cuddy. This is just off the top of my head, you understand? But I suppose he couldn't. Just have gone somewhere where you couldn't see him? No, that wouldn't be like old Leonard. He wouldn't disappear, but he might vanish. Oh. He was a bit unhinged, if you know what I mean. Head too full of brains. Ha! I remember he had this idea once of getting lightning out of lemons. Hey, Sendivold, you remember Leonard and his lightning lemons? Sendivold made little circular motions alongside his head with one finger. Oh, yes. If you stick copper and zinc rods in the lemon, hey presto, you get tame lightning. Man was an idiot. Oh, not an idiot, said Silverfish, picking up a billiard ball that had miraculously escaped the detonations. Just so sharp he kept cutting himself, as my granny used to say. Lightning lemons, where's the sense in that? It was as bad as his Voices in the Sky machine. I told him, Leonard, I said, what are wizards for, eh? There's perfectly normal magic available for that kind of thing. Lightning lemons! If it'll be men with wings next. And you know what he said? You know what he said? He said, funny you should say that. Poor old chap. Even Cuddy joined in the laughter. And did you try it? He said afterwards. Try what? Said Silverfish. Har, 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 said Detritus, toiling behind the others. Putting the metal rods in the lemons. Don't be a damn fool! What this letter mean? Said Detritus, pointing at the paper. They looked. Oh, that's not a symbol, said Silverfish. That's just old Leonard's way. He was always doodling in margins. Doodle, doodle, doodle. I told him, you should call yourself Mr. Doodle. I thought it was some alchemy thing, said Cuddy. It looks a bit like a crossbow without the bow. And this word, enoget. What does that mean? Search me. Sounds barbarian to me. Anyway, if that's all, officer, we've got some serious research to do, said Silverfish, tossing the fake ivory ball up in the air and catching it again. We're not all daydreamers like poor old Leonard. Enoget, said Cuddy, turning the paper round and round. Thegone. Silverfish missed the ball. Cuddy got behind Detritus just in time. I've done this before, said Sergeant Cullen, as he and Nobby approached the Fool's Guild. Keep up against the wall when I bangs the knocker, all right? It was shaped like a pair of artificial breasts, the sort that are highly amusing to rugby players and anyone whose sense of humour has been surgically removed. Colin gave it a quick rap and then flung himself to safety. There was a whoop, a few honks on the horn, honk honk, and a little tune that someone somewhere must have thought was very jolly. A small hatch slid aside from above the knocker and a custard pie emerged slowly on the end of a wooden arm. Then the arm snapped and the pie collapsed in a little heap by Colin's foot. It's sad, isn't it? Said Nobby. The door opened awkwardly, but only by a few inches, and a small clown stared up at him. I say, it said. Why did the fat man knock at the door? I don't know, said Colin automatically. Why did the fat man knock at the door? They stared at each other, tangled in the punchline. That's what I asked you, said the clown reproachfully. He had a depressed, hopeless voice. Sergeant Colin struck out towards sanity. Sergeant Colin, night watch, he said. And this here is Corporal Nobbs. We've come to talk to someone about the man who was found in the river, okay? Oh, yes. Poor brother Biano. I suppose you'd better come in then, said the clown. Nobby was about to push at the door when Colin stopped him. And pointed wordlessly upwards. There seems to be a bucket of whitewash over the door, he said. Is there? Said the clown. He was very small, with huge boots that made him look like a capital L. His face was plastered with flesh-colored makeup on which a big frown had been painted. His hair had been made from a couple of old mops, painted red. He wasn't fat, but a sort of hoop in his trousers was supposed to make him look amusingly overweight. A pair of rubber braces so that his trousers bounced up and down when he walked were a further component in the overall picture of a complete and utter twerp. Yes, said Colin, there is. Sure? Positive. Sorry about that, said the clown. It's stupid, I know, but kind of traditional. Wait a moment. There were sounds of a stepladder being lugged into position, and various clankings and swear words. All right, come on in. The clown led the way through the gatehouse. There was no sound but the flop-flop of his boots on the cobbles. Then an idea seemed to occur to him. It's a long shot, I know, but I suppose neither of you gentlemen would like a sniff of my buttonhole? No. Now! No, I suppose not, the clown sighed. It's not easy, you know. Clowning, I mean. I'm on gate duty 'cause I'm on probation. You are? I keep on forgetting. Is it crying on the outside and laughing on the inside? I always get it mixed up. About this piano, Colin began. We're just holding his funeral, said the little clown. That's why my trousers are at half-mast. They stepped out into the sunlight again. In the inner courtyard was lined with clowns and fools. Bells tinkled in the breeze. Sunlight glinted off red noses and the occasional nervous jet of water from a fake buttonhole. The clown ushered the guards into a line of fools. I'm sure Dr. Whiteface will talk to you as soon as we've finished, he said. My name's Buffo, by the way. He held out his hand hopefully. Don't shake it, Colin warned. Buffo looked crestfallen. A band struck up, and a procession of guild members emerged from the chapel. A clown walked a little way ahead, carrying a small urn. This is very moving, said Buffo. On a dais on the opposite side of the quadrangle was a fat clown in baggy trousers, huge braces, a bow tie that was spinning gently in the breeze, and a top hat. His face had been painted into a picture of misery. He held a bladder on a stick. The clown with the urn reached the dais, climbed the steps and waited. The band fell silent. The clown in the top hat hit the urn carrier about the head with the bladder. Once, twice, 3 times. The urn bearer stepped forward, waggled his wig, took the urn in one hand and the clown's belt in the other, and with great solemnity poured the ashes of the late brother Biano into the other clown's trousers. A sigh went up from the audience. The band struck up the clown anthem, the March of the Idiots, and the end of the trombone flew off and hit a clown on the back of the head. He turned and swung a punch at the clown behind him, who ducked, causing a third clown to be knocked through the bass drum. Colin and Nobby looked at one another and shook their heads. Buffo produced a large red and white handkerchief and blew his nose with a humorous honking sound. Classic, he said. It's what he would have wanted. Have you any idea what happened? Said Colin. Oh, yes. Brother Grinaldi did the old heel and toe trick and tipped the urn down. I mean, why did Biano die? We think it was an accident, said Buffo. An accident, said Colin flatly. Yes, that's what Dr. Whiteface thinks. Buffo glanced upwards briefly. They followed his gaze. The rooftops of the Assassin's Guild adjoined the Fool's Guild. It didn't do to upset neighbors like that, especially when the only weapon you had was a custard pie edged with short crust pastry. That's what Dr. Whiteface thinks, said Buffo again, looking at his enormous shoes. Sergeant Colin liked a quiet life, and the city could spare a clown or two. In his opinion, the loss of the whole boiling could only make the world a slightly happier place. And yet, honestly, he didn't know what had got into the watch lately. It was Carrot. That was what it was. Even old Vimes had picked it up. We don't let things lie anymore. Maybe he was cleaning the club, sort of thing, and it accidentally went off, said Nobby. He'd caught it, too. No one want to kill young Biano, said the clown in a quiet voice. He was a friendly soul. Friends everywhere. Almost everywhere, said Colin. The funeral was over. The jesters, jokers, and clowns were going about their business, getting stuck in doorways on the way. There was much pushing and shoving and honking of noses, and falling of prats. It was a scene to make a happy man slit his wrists when a fine spring rang. All I know is, said Buffo in a low voice, that when I saw him yesterday, he was looking very odd. I called out to him when he was going through the gates and... How do you mean odd? Said Colin. I am detectoring, he thought, with a faint touch of pride. People are helping me with my inquiries. Dunno. Odd. Not quite himself. This was yesterday? Oh yes, in the morning. I knew because the gate wrote yesterday morning. That's what I said, mister. Mind you, we were all a bit nervous after the bang. Brother Buffo! Oh no, mumbled the clown. A figure was striding towards them. A terrible figure. No clowns were funny. That was the whole purpose of a clown. People laughed at clowns, but only out of nervousness. The point of clowns was that, after watching them, anything else that happened seemed enjoyable. It was nice to know there was someone worse off than you. Someone had to be the butt of the whole world. Someone had to be the butt of the world. But even clowns are frightened of something. And that is the white-faced clown, the one who never gets in the way of the custard. The one in the shiny white clothes and the deadpan white makeup. The one with the little pointy hat and the thin mouth and the delicate black eyebrows. Dr. Whiteface. Who are these gentlemen? He demanded. Buffo began. Night watch, sir, said Colin, saluting. And why are you here? Investigating our inquiries as to the fatal demise of the clown Biano, sir, said Colin. I rather think that is guild business, Sergeant. Don't you? Well, sir, he was found in the... I am sure it is something we don't need to bother the watch with, said Dr. Whiteface. Colin hesitated. He'd prefer to face Dr. Cruces than this apparition. At least the assassins were supposed to be unpleasant. Clowns were only one step away from mime artists, too. No, sir, he said. It was obviously an accident, right? Quite so. Brother Boffo will show you to the door, said the head clown. And then, he added, he will report to my office. Does he understand? Yes, Dr. Whiteface, mumbled Buffo. What'll he do to you? Said Nobby, as they headed for the gate. Hat full of whitewash, probably, said Buffo. Pie in the face, if I'm lucky. He opened the wicket gate. A lot of us ain't happy about this, he whispered. I don't see why those buggers should get away with it. We ought to go round to the assassins and have it out with them. Why the assassins? Said Colin. Why would they kill a clown? Buffo looked guilty. I never said a thing. Colin glared at him. There's definitely something odd happening, Mr. Buffo. Buffo looked around, as if expecting a vengeful custard pie at any moment. You find his nose, he hissed. You just find his nose, his poor nose. The gate slammed shut. Bang! Sergeant Colin turned to Nobby. Did Exhibit A have a nose, Nobby? Yes, Fred. Then what was that about? Search me? Nobby scratched a promising boil. Perhaps he meant a false nose. You know, those red ones on elastic. The ones, said Nobby, grimacing, they think are funny. He didn't have one. Colin rapped on the door, taking care to stand out of the way of any jolly amusing booby traps. The hatch slid aside. Yes, hissed Buffo. Did you mean his false nose? Said Colin. His real one! Now bugger off! The hatch snapped back. Shunk! Mental, said Nobby, firmly. Biano had a real nose. Did it look wrong to you? Said Colin. No, it had a couple of holes in it. Well, I don't know about noses, said Colin. But either Brother Buffo is dead wrong or there's something fishy going on. Like what? Well, Nobby, you're what I might call a career soldier, right? That's right, Fred. How many dishonourable discharges have you had? Lots, said Nobby proudly. But I always puts a poultice on them. Poultice, a soft, moist mass of material, typically of plant material or flour, applied to the body to relieve soreness and inflammation and kept in place with a cloth. Poultice.
Poultice.
You've been on a lot of battlefields, ain't you? Dozens. Sergeant Colin nodded. So you've seen a lot of corpses, right? When you've been ministering to the fallen... Corporal Nobbs nodded. They both knew that ministering meant harvesting any personal jewelry and stealing their boots. In many a faraway battlefield, the last thing many a mortal wounded foeman ever saw was Corporal Nobbs heading towards him with a sack, a knife, and a calculating expression. Shame to let good stuff go to waste, said Nobby. So you've noticed how dead bodies get? Deader, said Sergeant Colin. Deader than dead? You know, more corpsey, said Sergeant Colin, forensic expert. Going stiff and purple and such like? Right. And then sort of manky and runny? Yes, all right. Makes it easier to get the rings off, mind you. The point is, Nobby, that you can tell how old a corpse is. That clown, for example. For e.g., you saw him same as me. How long would you say? About 5'9", I'd say. His boots didn't fit. I know that. Too floppy. I meant how long he'd been dead. Couple of days. You can tell because there's this. So how come Buffo saw him yesterday morning? They strolled onwards. Bit of a poser, that is, said Nobby. You're right. I expect the captain'll be very interested. Maybe he was a zombie. Shouldn't think so. Never could stand zombies, Nobby mused. Really? It was always so hard to nick their boots. Sergeant Cullen nodded at a passing beggar. You still doing the folk dancing on your nights off, Nobby? Yes, Fred. We're practicing gathering sweet lilacs this week. There is a very complicated double crossover step. You're definitely a man of many parts, Nobby. Only if I couldn't cut the rings off, Fred. What I mean is, you present an intriguing dichotomy. Dichotomy. A division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different. Division. Dichotomy. What I mean is, you present an intriguing dichotomy. Nobby took a kick at a small scruffy dog. You've been reading books again, Fred. Got to improve my mind, Nobby. It's these new recruits. Carrot's got his nose in a book half the time. Angua knows words I has to look up. Even the short arse is brighter than me. Even the short arse is brighter than me. They keep on attracting the urine. I'm definitely a bit under-endowed in the head department. You're brighter than Detritus, said Nobby. That's what I tell myself. I say, Fred, whatever happens, you're brighter than Detritus. But then I say, Fred, so's yeast. He turned away from the window. So the damn watch. That damn Vimes. Exactly the wrong man in the wrong place. Why didn't people learn from history? Treachery was in its very genes. How could a city run properly with someone like that poking around? That wasn't what a watch was for. Watchmen were supposed to do what they were told and see to it that other people did too. Someone like Vimes could upset things, not because he was clever. A clever watchman was a contradiction in terms, but sheer randomness might cause trouble. The gun lay on the table. What shall I do about Vimes? Kill him?